Good afternoon, Rotarians. This is July 28th, Ludlow Rotary Club Zoom meeting. And we have Linda Maness here from the New England branch of the Komen Foundation. And Sharon was unable to be with us, Linda.
Okay.
But she had seen some information, I believe, in the paper regarding the Komen Foundation. And we were able to connect with a date. So we're happy to have you, and you have the floor.
Oh, okay. So thank you very much for inviting me. I'm so pleased to be able to be with the Rotary session today. As Kim mentioned, my name is Linda Maness. I'm a development manager for Susan G. Komen here in New England. And I'm going to give you a little bit of history of who we are and why we are, and a little bit more then about specific events that are coming up. So here in Vermont, we are now in our 28th year of holding peer-to-peer events. And we've been known as the local Susan G. Komen affiliate, first as Vermont, and then later invited New Hampshire to join us and was the Vermont, New Hampshire affiliate, holding Race for the Cure events, which was the traditional 5K run and walk. We also added a couple of horseback rides. And meanwhile, there were also affiliates in Connecticut and Massachusetts and Maine. And ultimately, in the winter of 2017, we all merged and became Komen New England, all with the same goal of supporting women and men facing a breast cancer diagnosis. Throughout our history here in Vermont and the rest of New England, the support has been made possible, as I said, through peer-to-peer events, which is an in-person event, but also third-party events that people like to throw on our behalf, whether it's a car wash or high school basketball games that fundraise in October on our behalf. But the peer-to-peer events rely on individuals and teams put together by friends and family or corporations or even schools or medical offices that fundraise on our behalf. And they are also supported by sponsorships from generous businesses and community organizations, and then as well as through planned philanthropy. The first race for the cure was held in Vermont in 1993, so this is our 28th year of having a presence here in Vermont. Our home base has been Manchester, but we have been supported from all over the state, reaching down to Bennington and Brattleboro, up to Rutland and Middlebury, as well as UVM Medical Center and the Community Foundation, and plenty of individuals that have come down from Burlington or Essex Junction or from Barry, and up from, as I say, from Brattleboro or over the bridge from New Hampshire to come take part in our events. And currently, our staff is all working from home, like many of you, I suppose, are doing. But we do have one small office still in Vermont, and the rest of the crew is mostly based in Massachusetts, outside of Boston, but a few members also in Connecticut. And right now, we are focused on the More Than Pink Walk, which may have been the event that Sharon read about at the time. That walk normally would have been held in July, but we made that decision back in April to postpone all our events to October. And then quickly it became evident that we would not be meeting in person for that event, and they are now virtual walks. Now, the Vermont virtual walk, as well as the one in Connecticut and Massachusetts, will be held on October 24th as far as an event date. And people are invited to #WalkWhereYouAre, making it easy for anybody to participate from anywhere, whether it's your own backyard or a team member perhaps in California or even Hawaii. I have a current acquaintance who's in Idaho who joined my team. I have found and I started working or volunteering with Komen in 1995 when I went to my first race walk. My kids have all volunteered, stuffing goodie bags, handing out water. It's become quite a family participation event. And my husband does a lot of the behind the throne work for me as far as providing event day backup. So what I really would like to just mention for all of you to know about is the Vermont virtual event. in that event, as well as the walks in Connecticut or Massachusetts, if you have family, friends, or others in those states, it's easy to register for by going to komennewengland.org/walk. All the information about the events are right there. One of the things I also wanted to point out was where does the money go? And we get that question quite a lot. It used to be that 75% stayed local, and that would fund a grant system that was in place. Komen is busy restructuring, but the restructuring will still provide local support through their treatment assistance hotline, which then feeds out into those same entities that are looking for our support. So we are still helping moms, sisters, daughters, and friends, and men too, because many people forget that men also get breast cancer. But in this unprecedented time of COVID, breast cancer hasn't stopped during COVID, and neither has Susan G. Komen. So those dealing with a breast cancer diagnosis are now, as Vermont has opened up a little bit more, and some of the other states, the message from Komen is it's time to schedule your mammogram. If you had been putting it off for 4 months and normally would have gone in March, April, May, etc., now's the time. If your treatment was halted for some reason due to the impacts on hospitals and so forth, it's time to be back in touch with your medical team and looking back to how to get on course. Because one of the things we've been worried about are people who've had to wait too long for something that was concerning and get back out there. And that is true then of our events that help those people with funding for transportation, childcare, or food even during a time of having to go through treatment. So I actually would like to know if anybody has any questions about Komen New England, our specific event. I will quickly mention that we also usually have a horseback ride that takes place in South Woodstock. That is going virtual, and folks will be riding their horses where they are. But we are hopeful to still have a snowshoe event in Grafton in January. We're waiting to see whether that'll be possible or not. And then we have a second snowshoe over in the Gunstock area in New Hampshire. So I'm so pleased to have a chance to let you all know about Komen New England and what we're doing.
Thank you very much. Mark, turn on your mic.
Thanks, Kevin. Good observation.
Good afternoon.
Linda, thanks for being here. What's your biggest kind of fundraiser in general, and how many do you do kind of like during the course of a year? Does it change, or is it?
No, we have a pretty standard calendar. So the More Than Pink Walk was introduced in 2018. It is taking the place of Race for the Cure. And that was a national decision by the Komen headquarters. There are still some affiliates that do race. But the More Than Pink Walk came about because traditionally walkers raise more money than runners do. Runners come, want to do their 5K, see how they did, and they leave. Walkers traditionally are more invested in the cause. They know somebody personally, or it might be themselves, who are finally able to get out and walk a little bit. And the More Than Pink Walk is no longer an official distance, a 5K being 3.1 miles. It's more like 1.5 to 2 miles, or really any distance you want to do. And certainly this year for virtual, anybody can do any amount of walking they wish. So More Than Pink Walk is now held in Vermont. It's held in Hartford, Connecticut, and it's held in Boston, Mass. As I say, in this particular year, all three will be virtual. And then in addition to the horseback ride here in Vermont and the 2 snowshoe events, there is a bicycle ride event called the Impact Ride that's usually held in the first weekend of October in the Boston area, and actually riding down to Rhode Island to include them. And then we also have been having a fashion show called Catwalk for the Cure, which has been held in March. Fortunately, that was the first event that had to fall by the wayside. Other fundraisers hosted by us are what's called Pink Tie Guys, which has been a Hartford and Boston related event targeting men to support Susan G. Komen in New England, but also throughout the country. There are Pink Tie Guys where you set your amount for fundraising, and then there's one big celebration at the end, and everybody gets a very cool, wildly patterned pink tie to celebrate their achievements. So the More Than Pink Walk is definitely our largest fundraiser. I would say a little over 1,000 people, both in Hartford and Massachusetts. They are usually held in May and June. The Vermont event has now been held in the summer, and we've been getting a lot of heat the last couple of years, and unfortunately that has impacted turnout. We had about 385 people brave the weather that's like current weather right now on that event day, and raised, I want to say $45,000 here in Vermont for our event. And the snowshoe event raised $27,000 this past winter, which was our largest snowshoe ever. And the horseback ride traditionally raises somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. That has maybe only 45 to 60 actual horseback riders. So they do a pretty amazing job of fundraising on their own. Wow. If you're not familiar with the snowshoe event, came out of a nationwide series hosted by Tubbs Snowshoes called Romp to Stomp. And they had about 10 different venues. And here in Vermont, it was held at Stratton Mountain. And 4 years ago, Tubbs decided to no longer host that event. And our constituency said, no, please don't take our snowshoe away. So we decided to host it ourselves. And it's been a wonderful fundraiser. We were at Stratton for 3 years and then decided to move to the Grafton facility, which was just wonderful last winter and had about 120 snowshoers come out on a beautiful January day and enjoy their trail system there. The one in Gunstock in New Hampshire, we held a nighttime snowshoe event under the lights, and that was a lot of fun. It was a little chilly, but again, very successful, and had people coming from Maine and up from Massachusetts and Rhode Island to that event, as well as coming to our event in Vermont from all over.
Thank you. Great.
So Linda, I'm not very familiar with the I know the foundation, but I'm not familiar how it works. Do you do grants, or do you select where the funds are going, which institutions, which research centers, you know what I mean? How does that work?
Sure. Proposals are accepted for the research grants. Komen has a national research program, and you would not be surprised to know that people at Mass General and Dana-Farber are very big on writing grants. However, Dr. Stumpf from UVM received a $400,000 grant. I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So Vermont has had medical people receive a research grant, but it is more often that it might be Dartmouth in New Hampshire. I'm not sure that maybe anything was awarded in Portland, Maine, at Maine Med at some point, but certainly Dana-Farber and Mass General and the Hartford Health Foundation in Connecticut. And all of those grants benefit everybody everywhere. So with the restructuring, HQ is slowly giving us more information as to how the granting process will continue for research. But instead of direct funding, say, to Rutland Regional or to Southwestern Vermont Medical, the funding is being worked for those types of facilities a little bit different. By calling the treatment assistance hotline, you would identify where your treatment is taking place, and Komen would be able to direct somebody to a facility, and the granting of funding to support you would be more out of a national fund versus a local fund.
Interesting.
And it's slowly evolving. The restructuring was announced in early June, and each affiliate is slowly getting more information We will be restructuring the affiliates, so to speak. It'll be more of a regional situation, so it'll be the whole Northeast instead of just New England. But our goal as development managers will not change in making sure that our own states and communities are served and that people do not have more than one phone call to make to find their assistance.
Anyone else? Questions?
I see Ralph's
Ralph?
hand.
Linda, could you tell us a little bit about Susan?
Okay. So we're 27, I think it's close to 30 years ago, or actually more, 1982, excuse me, that Susie G Komen, her sister Nancy and she grew up in Illinois. And when Susie was diagnosed with breast cancer way back then, that was not something that was talked about. You know, breasts were not something that easily were brought up in conversation, and cancer was still a very hush-hush conversation. And there was not as much knowledge as to how to treat breast cancer. More often than not, it was a full mastectomy and higher doses of chemo, kind of a one-all treatment instead of looking at people individually. And unfortunately, Susie died from breast cancer, and her sister Nancy said there's got to be something done about this. And ultimately, when she got married and moved to Texas, she found a base that was interested in breast cancer as well, and ran in some very good circles for support and philanthropy. And the first race was put on to start fundraising and establish the foundation, and gradually grew as knowledge grew about the disease and more research was being done, that a more individual approach was needed, that it was not a one-size-fit-all cure, and that not just chemo, but other radiation and oral medication would be possible. So it has highly evolved over all these years, and Vermont has one of the lower mortality rates, more success in people surviving breast cancer, and certainly you've all probably heard early diagnosis is very helpful. So that's where mammograms come in and self-exam, which was more promoted 5 years ago than it is now, but it's more of a self-awareness of your whole body. Know your own normal is basically the catchphrase, that if you notice changes, you should probably see a doctor about something. And certainly that's true for anything, not just breast. So Susie, from all that I know from some reading of who she was well loved, and her sister Nancy just decided enough was enough and I can do something about it. And taking action is something that continues to be in the forefront of Komen, as far as looking at research and care and community and action, meaning advocacy, to make sure that everybody has a chance to get the services that they need, no matter where they live and no matter their economic status.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
And if anybody has any questions, certainly Kim or Sharon has my email address and phone number. I'm happy to speak with anybody that wishes to follow up with me at any time. And I certainly do invite you to check out our website for all our information, not just the event. But I would love to, by the way, I didn't mention that registration is free for the virtual event. We are really looking for people who will walk where they are and fundraise, so that the $25 that you might normally have used to register, maybe that's your self-donation, and talk it up with friends and family that what can we do as a socially distanced activity in October.
Thank you very much, Linda. We all appreciate that.
Pleasure to meet you all. I hope you have a good meeting the rest of the time.
Thank you. You take care.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thank you, Kim.